So this was the video from the very end of the incident. The Trump administration is calling this an act of domestic terrorism. The woman in the car, who may or may not have been an ICE protester or involved in the protest, was trying to terrorize the ICE agents, or at least harass them, perhaps block their way earlier. She tried to speed away, and then the officer, as you can see, fires, gets hit, knocked out of the way, and the woman dies from the single gunshot wound. Bring in Barrett Berger, former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. Steve Barrett, veteran TV journalist, co-host of Barrett and Baxa out of Minneapolis-St. Paul. Former federal prosecutor Shan Wu, the non-Barrett of the group. Ladies first, as always, this would be the question, Barrett. Is this a potential federal case or state case? The mayor says the explanation by ICE and the administration is cow manure, but it's the FBI investigating. We know what Tim Walz thinks of the Trump administration and of ICE, that he's called Gestapo. Is there a situation where a local prosecutor, state prosecutor, or Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, bring state charges against this ICE officer?
Yeah, I would imagine there would be an investigation done by both jurisdictions. There should be an investigation, a thorough investigation done by one body. And if the state feels that the federal government is not doing an investigation, I would absolutely imagine that they would conduct their own. I mean, an investigation before we get out over our skis saying, it's domestic terrorism, it's that. You need to talk to witnesses. You need to actually, review all the footage that we have, review forensic evidence that might speak to this. And then, potentially impanel a grand jury. So if that is not being done by the federal authorities, I would imagine the state would step in.
Yeah, we understand the FBI has jurisdiction. It's not ICE because of the way the separation works when there's a shooting. But then it goes from there. Although, to be fair, it seems as though the administration's already made up its mind that it was a justified shooting. Shan Wu, that brings us to the question, though. So you have the potential of a federal agent being charged by state prosecutors for his actions while acting as a federal agent, right?
Right, and there is some precedent for that. It has a lot of hurdles to overcome if the state authorities do charge the agent. First of all, the agent's lawyers are going to assert a Supremacy Clause. They're asked to remove it to federal court. They'll probably succeed in doing that, but there is some precedent for that. It is rare, and it's a little bit of a role reversal here. I mean, we're all used to thinking of DOJ as kind of Justice Department overseeing whether state authorities are doing their job. Here we have kind of a reversal where the state is really challenging whether or not the federal officers, in this case the ICE agent, are properly acting within the scope of their duties. And that's, you hit that on the head. That's the whole question is he acting within the scope of his duties as a law enforcement officer, or is he doing something rogue, which amounts to murder?
Yeah, I think the term rogue was actually used by Tim Walz, perhaps not on accident. Steve Barrett, that brings us to you. Give us a sense of the feeling inside Minneapolis right now. How much of this anger is real and how much of it is being stoked by Tim Walz, by Jacob Frey, the mayor, et cetera, who do not seem to have learned anything from George Floyd?
Well, Leland, I can tell you that this could not have happened at a worse place, at a worse time right now, with all of the fraud investigations going on right now and the tension over all of that. And then, of course, this happens. Everybody predicted that something like this was likely to happen, right? But talk about out over your skis. The mayor and the governor are out over their skis in this situation after barely seeing any of the video or talking to any of the witnesses. None of that was out there. So I would say that tensions are a lot higher tonight because they're stoking things. And to me, this all comes down to training. And in the courtroom, it's going to come down to how this officer was trained and what the policies are.
If it ever gets to the courtroom, real quick, Steve, I thought Allie Bradley made a really fascinating point that this was just around the corner from where George Floyd was killed. What kind of neighborhood is it? Why, if you have any idea, was ICE there?
Yeah, well, it's just blocks away, and the ICE has been in that area for quite some time now.
Okay.
And there's no indication right now that they were apprehending anyone at the time that this happened. Apparently, there was a vehicle stuck that they were trying to get out.
Yeah, there was like a convoy of ICE agents. There's a thought that this woman was actually trying to sort of block ICE. Barrett Berger, to you, how much does the fact that this ICE agent, as we just heard at the end of Chris Cuomo's show, was reportedly involved in a traffic accident before where a car was used as a weapon play into this?
Yeah, I think it definitely plays into it. I mean, as you mentioned in the earlier segment, we are second guessing, a split-second decision, which is really impossible to do. I mean, to put yourself in that officer's position, certainly he would, a very valid defense for him would be, given my past experience, I thought it was incredibly likely that that my life was in jeopardy. I would certainly imagine that that would go to his state of mind and whether he thought he was in some sort of extreme danger. Now, it has to be reasonably, objectively reasonable danger, right? It can't be crazy
but,
out there.
If you see a car coming at you and you could see from where the shot was fired, the car was headed at him. Shan Wu, last question to you. From this videotape, we see that split-second decision that the officer made. You then had, based on the videotape, Jacob Fry, the mayor, calling it cow manure. You clearly had Tim Walz saying that the officer went rogue, on and on and on. How could somebody ever get a fair trial in a place where the governor's already prejudged him?
Well, I think you can get a fair trial through the proper jury selection. Here, it would be very difficult to change venue. If it's a state prosecution, very hard to change venue out of the state. That's really not going to work. If there were a federal prosecution, which I think is highly unlikely, given the way they've already prejudged this, yeah, it's not going to happen. So if it's a state prosecution, they can certainly argue that. There's been a lot of publicity, and in that sense, it's a good argument. But there's no place for them to really go. I mean, try and go out of state's not going to work. It's the state that has the jurisdiction. So yeah, that can taint things, absolutely.
What would be unthinkable, but it is 2026, for the state to charge a federal agent when the federal government declined. Barrett Berger, Steve Barrett, Shan Wu, thank you all very much.